Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Uncaged podcast. And in today's episode, I am speaking to the amazing Sonia Grimes. Now, Sonia is somebody that I met at a networking event a few years ago now, I think probably even 4 years ago. And she's just one of the most wonderful, lovely people that I've ever met. And also, she is just an inspirational, courageous woman who I really wanted to talk to, and whose story and wisdom I wanted to share with everybody. So Sonia is an alcohol recovery coach, and the reason that she does that is because she went through her own journey, her own struggle with alcohol for a long period in her life, and she came out the other side of that, and now she uses what she learned from that, but what she's also learned about herself since then, to help other people to navigate, to release themselves from their addiction to alcohol. And it's something that can be applied across many different types of addiction. So if you're thinking, well, I don't have an issue with alcohol, this isn't going to be relevant for me, I can guarantee you there will be something of relevance for you in this episode, because as we talk about extensively in the episode, I would say that my vice is sugar. And Sonia picked me up on that in the episode, and you'll hear more about it. And the exact same principles can be applied to feeling like you're addicted to sugar, as can be applied to alcohol, as can be applied to shopping. And you can use these principles to look at the relationship you have with different areas of your life, whether it be money, whether it be relationships, whatever it might be, whether it be food. So there's just so much gold in this episode. And Sonia is just, as I said, courageous, inspirational, and a really good, fun person to have on the podcast as well. So I have no doubt that you will get something from this. I really encourage you to give it a listen, even if you think, like I said, that alcohol recovery is not relevant for you. I guarantee there will be something of relevance in here for you. And also, I would highly recommend that you read Sonia's book, This Isn't Me. I read it when she first released it, and we were part of the same networking group at the time when she released it. And boy, oh boy, it is such a powerful read. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. I certainly had to have the tissues at the ready, and was very glad that I wasn't reading it in public at certain times, because it's just such a wonderful, honest, vulnerable, courageous exploration, description, what's the word that I'm looking for, a narrative of Sonia's experience with alcohol and what led her to eventually move past that and to create the amazing things that she is now creating in her life. And I know that in the next few years she's going to go from strength to strength and create even more impact and help just so many people with this. So really encourage you to give this a listen, and also get yourself on Amazon, get yourself a copy of This Isn't Me. Give it a read. Again, even if you think alcohol recovery is not relevant for you, the book will spark some inspiration in you. I have no doubt about that. So I hope that you really enjoy listening to this episode. All of Sonia's details will be found in the show notes. But if you want to find out more about her, the best way is www.soniagrimes.com. And I really hope that you find this valuable. Would love to have your feedback on this. So please do let me know any thoughts that you have, any comments. And without further ado, I will shut up and let you get on with listening. Enjoy. Welcome everybody to this episode of the Uncaged podcast, and I am delighted to have with me today the wonderful Sonia Grimes. So welcome, Sonia, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Corinne. It's lovely to be here.
My absolute pleasure. So you and I met, a few years ago now at a networking event, and you just have the most amazing story and inspirational story, which is why I wanted to bring you on and share about your life and your experience and your work with people, so that they can get inspiration from it, and perhaps even then they might think, aha, I need to work with Sonia. I need a Sonia in my life.
Or even if they just have an aha that moves them forward, that would be fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. So you are definitely the best person to share about your story and how you've come to be where you are. So I'll let you introduce yourself and a little bit about you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Sonia Grimes. I'm the recovery coach, and I coach women, well, men and women actually, who are trapped in damaging and painful alcohol behaviours to effortless freedom. And the reason I do that is because I was an alcoholic for 28 years. And prior to that, I was a heroin addict, but there was no overlap. And it's quite important that I stress that there was no overlap. And I managed to, well, I didn't manage to give up heroin. I just stopped one day. I just, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was gone. Yes, I was ill, but I never had any more thoughts about doing it and about taking it. I didn't miss it. I had no emotional attachment to it, which seemed so incredible when 5 or 6 years later I started drinking. And then after my son was born, he's now 22, I couldn't stop drinking. And it seemed so incredible to me that I could overcome with ease, and it was ease, yes, ease, I was unwell, heroin addiction, and I could not stop drinking. And I did AA and I did therapies and interventions, and I was probably the biggest failure out there because I would go to AA, feel so terrified, and this is not against anyone, everybody was wonderful and supportive and caring, and I'd go to the flipping pub or get a miniature of vodka on the way home because I was so shell-shocked and scared and overwhelmed and daunted by the journey in front of me. So I carried on drinking. And then about 8 years ago, I was told that if I didn't change my drinking, if I didn't stop drinking, I would die. My liver was damaged, my enzymes were raised. And again, I didn't know how to stop drinking. I didn't know, though, that I didn't know how to. So instead of cutting down, unbelievably, being so fearful of leaving my son, I was drinking more. And then a year after that, I woke up one day with no expectation that life would be any different, no expectation that I would be sober. And I had a moment of understanding as I was writing to Christopher, my son, explaining that I was going to leave him, that I loved him, which didn't make any sense because how could you say you love someone, know that if you don't change your drinking, you're going to die and not change it? Well, clearly I loved alcohol more than him. How else could he have viewed it? He couldn't have viewed it any other way. And as I was writing to him, I had a moment of understanding about choice. And I now believe that choice is the greatest gift we have, not love, because we can choose to love or not. Choice is something we always have in every situation. We have choice over every reaction, every response we make. And that awareness of choice for me, small though it was enough for me to realize that I had chosen alcohol. And I remember writing to Christopher, I wouldn't have chosen this for us. I wouldn't have chosen this for me. I wouldn't have chosen this for you, for him. And in that writing, I kept seeing choice. I was like, oh my effing God. Alcohol didn't choose you. You chose it. You do have a choice. And in that understanding of choice, it wasn't so much that I felt more powerful, but what actually happened was, and I didn't notice at the time, that my fear left. My fear left. In that choice, I was no longer trapped. And the fear of not having any choice was gone. So that was actually the key, because fear is the brake pedal to change, not what we do. Fear of how we'll be, fear of how we'll live, fear of how we'll cope, fear of how we'll suffer without whatever it is we do, shopping, gambling, sex, any
Sugar, in my case.
What's your fear?
Sugar. That's the
Sugar.
Sugar.
Sugar. We only do what we do because we believe it brings us something. And it's that fear of not having it when we need it that's the actual issue. And I stopped drinking that day. I literally was like, I swear so much, but I'm really not going to. Oh, my effing.
Oh, it's fine. You could swear as much as you want on this podcast.
No, because once I start, I get into a bit of a loop. And
it always goes out as explicit.
Oh, okay. But it was. And I went downstairs and I saw the bottle of the last bit of vodka that I clearly had been too drunk to drink the night before. And I looked at it and it had no pull.
Wow.
It was just like, it was like looking at it from a different lens, certainly looking at it through without the lens of fear. And I just was like, no, this can't be real. And it was. And then every day, every minute of the day, because the fear wasn't there, I just chose how I wanted to be, how I wanted to feel. And of course, every choice I made took me closer to who I really was, took me closer to the mother my son wanted and deserved. I would start to look at myself with pride and self-respect, and you're doing this, Son, you're doing this. And every step was a natural step to the next step, and there were natural step to the next step. And it wasn't I'd wake up in the morning and think, today I'm not going to drink. I'd wake up in the morning thinking, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I used to look at myself in the mirror and in my eyes say, I love you. I never said things like that. And I can feel it now, and that's what powered me forward. And then I'd see Christopher's, the look in his eyes. I'd see the anxiety when I realised that had always been there. And then I'd see the pride and love in his eyes when I acted differently. And my life changed, his life changed, the world changed completely. And then I sat with it for a couple of years. I started up a business with weight loss because I'm a nutritionist as well. And one of the things I wanted to involve Christopher, and I set the business up to show him, you can say sorry till you're blue in the face, you need action, to show him that I was different, to show him that I was consistent. I said to him one day, because I involved him in everything, what should I do, darling, to build the business? He said, Mum, you're an amazing cook. Why don't you write a recipe book? So I was like, okay, I'll do that, because I wanted us to do. So I sat down and I wrote, and 3 weeks later, I produced this book. I don't think I've got a copy of it here, actually. Oh, yes, I do. Do excuse me.
Right.
This isn't me.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I wrote it and I gave it to him. I said, Christopher, this is what I've written. And he was like, now I am going to swear because this is verbatim. What the fuck is this?
This isn't a recipe book.
He said, it's all about me and there's no magic macaroni cheese. I'm like, oh, sorry, darling, this is just what came out. And I don't know, can I slip a recipe in there? No, I can't. And it's my apology to him. And then I published that, self-published it, it's on Amazon. And people started to buy it. And I was like, oh my God. And then people started to come to me and say, how did you do it? What did you do? Now, I wrote that book nearly 4 years ago. So my journey has been so huge and loving and enlightening and empowering, the things I've learned and understood since then. And 2 years ago, I set up my recovery coaching to help women who are trapped in alcohol. And they find freedom effortlessly because their drinking is the pain, not the freedom. So that's what I do. And I did waffle then, so I'm sorry.
You did not. That was very eloquent and beautifully explained. And I'm just still giggling to myself at the idea, having read your book, of there being a recipe for macaroni cheese popped in between the chapters. It just would be so incongruent. For any
what the F?
Just for anybody who's listening or watching, and if you want to go and read that, I would highly recommend you go and read that book, This Isn't Me, and make sure you've got some tissues handy, because it certainly was one that I was very glad that I wasn't in public when I was reading it, because it's just so heartfelt and such an amazing story. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, is because you had this moment of transformation. Rather than, so often we believe that our struggles are things that it's going to take us. Change takes a long time. Change is going to be really difficult. Change is going to be really hard. And actually, not to say that, you know, you didn't have the challenges along the way, but ultimately you had that moment where you just really, like an epiphany moment, you recognize, oh, hang on a minute, I'm choosing this, and I get to choose something else.
It was a moment of, I don't know whether I would say it was an epiphany. And for anyone who's listening, who's struggling and thinks, oh, I wish it could be me, please remember, I struggled for 28 years. I did struggle. There is no word to describe it. It's such an understatement. But I think actually what I had was, which I now understand very well, is I had an awareness, because we go into the focus of struggle and fight. And it's just outside. If you're the more you focus on something, the more you think about it, the bigger and stronger it becomes. And you block off other opportunities and possibilities. So I believe what happened to me was, and I'll talk about beliefs in a minute if that's okay. I had this belief about myself and alcohol. And that sudden awareness just opened up that belief a little bit. And obviously I had to go with it. I had to trust it. But it was just an awareness. In that space of awareness, we grow with our awarenesses, and it leaves a gap. And what you fill that gap is your choice. Fear of like, oh my God, and then contraction, or, and I wanted it so badly, oh my God, what does this mean? What else could this mean? What else could be possible? And it just expanded awareness over and over again.
Yeah, it makes me think of something I heard recently, actually, that you don't have a choice until you're aware that you have a choice.
It's awareness.
It's like, oh, that is so true, because it's so easy to look at people and judge and say, well, you have a choice, you know, but some people aren't even yet aware.
That's so true. I had no awareness I had choice. And it was that awareness.
And I think the key thing as well, one of the things that you just said there, was that you wanted it so badly. You wanted the other, whatever it was, the other possibility so badly. And sometimes I'm playing with this a little bit myself. Actually, we can be quite attached to our struggle, because we identify with it. It becomes a part of who we are, and we're almost afraid of, who will I be without this? Who like, I'm going to have to create a whole identity if I'm not in this struggle, whether it's relationship or whether it's money or whether it's alcohol. It's like we identify with that. And then also we have a world that builds around us, including people that enhances that identity as well.
Our comfort zone can be so painful, and yet it's what we know.
Yeah.
It's
a real misnomer, isn't it? Comfort zone. It's not that comfortable, but
I think one of the ways that because I deal very much with beliefs, and I know you do as well. So one of the things that I would like to say to anyone that's listening, if you think about yourself and you're struggling with food or alcohol, and anything that you feel about yourself that isn't true feels bad, because there's no part of you that feels unhappy with who you are. Other people, that's their issue to deal with. And when you have self-confidence and self-respect and self-esteem, you can sort of, that's just, you accept that not everybody likes you and it doesn't matter. But when you believe anything about yourself that makes you feel bad, you know it's not real. You know it's not real, because there is no part of you that causes you any pain that you don't accept, that you're not compassionate about, that you don't forgive. Not one single part of you. You come into this world perfect, with the perfect knowledge and understanding of how to care, support, and love yourself, but without the skills. And of course, you're given then to someone, your parents, whoever, who also came into the world perfect, without the skills. And it goes back and back and back. So we all learn to live our life in a world according to somebody else's beliefs about how we will thrive, not how we will be destroyed. And we take those beliefs as ourselves. And I had big fears about money, because I come from a very poor background, a very loving but very poor background. So I have real strong beliefs about money. And anything that frightens you isn't real. It's just the trap of your thinking about it. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And I think it's quite, for many people, that's quite a radical idea to just go away with, just that one idea to go away with and sit with that idea that, hang on a minute, anything that makes me feel bad, and I fully agree, when we're aligned, we feel good.
Yeah.
So anything that makes me feel bad, and that's not necessarily something outside of ourselves. It's
inside us.
What's going on in our brain, in our mind, or in our body, even in our nervous system. It's not the truth.
It's fear.
Fear.
And fear is the brake pedal to change. And when you think about changing anything, if you think about it from, I'll use alcohol as an example, one thing I say to my clients. If you think about it like, I'm not going to drink today, I'm not going to drink today, and you're thinking about it from the perspective of, I was pissed last night and I was a nightmare and I'm too knackered to do anything, I can't be drinking today. If you think of it like that, from that perspective, you will drink that night because you comfort yourself. If you think of it from the perspective of, I am so excited about this, this is the best journey of my life, and it makes you feel good, you won't drink tonight. You won't, because you're reacting to your need for comfort. When you feel good about yourself, you're in alignment. When you feel bad about yourself, you're out of alignment. However, it's like walking with a broken leg. And you will use food or alcohol to try and heal that break, and of course it doesn't. And then you get in the cycle. But when you feel good about yourself, you are powerful without needing to be. You are at your most resilient, you are at your most resourceful. And when you are out of alignment, you are at your weakest. I don't like that word. You're most powerless and most helpless.
Yeah. And I think it's a slight tangent, but I've experienced, so as I said, my vice is sugar. And I'll go in waves. I'm really, if I say, right, you're not having it at all, then that works for me. If I try and moderate, that does not work. But what I found is I'll use it at both ends of the emotional spectrum. So I will use it if I'm having a bad day or whatever, things aren't going so well. But equally, if I've experienced intense joy, then it's almost like I can't handle that either. So I will go and use it.
And that's the truth of it, because out of alignment can be, and I do this with my clients, can either be down and you need to bring yourself up, or up and you need to bring it. This is down is out of alignment and up is out of alignment.
Yeah.
So and what you do with sugar, and it was very interesting, sugar is my vice. When did you decide that sugar was your vice?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a long time, I would say, probably, at least probably 20 or so years. Yeah.
So before that, sugar wasn't your vice. Before you made that decision, sugar wasn't your vice. You didn't have that decision.
No, and I think it was something I learned from watching a mum who restricted what she ate all the time. But I've got a sweet tooth, but I really shouldn't. Yeah.
So, but even though you learned it, you made a decision.
Yeah.
To believe that sugar was your vice. That in itself holds you back from change, because you've identified as having a vice, something that you
grips me. Yeah.
Something that grips you. And in that belief that you have a vice, whenever you try to change the way your sugar, with that belief in it, because we only hold these beliefs to protect us, not to harm us. You don't have to harm us at all, to protect us. So when you go out of alignment, either down or up, the belief that sugar brings you something, because that's ultimately what the belief is. The belief is that sugar is the solution. It's not the problem. Intellectually, sugar is the problem. On an unconscious level, sugar is the solution.
Yeah.
And when you are feeling low and bad, and your unconscious mind controls 98% of your behavior, it regulates your breathing and your heart rate. That's a scientific fact. What you know has no impact on how you feel. You know that when you go out with the daft guy who's just a fucking idiot, and everyone else, you're like, what?
I love it. Like, what is wrong with you?
Because he did something nice once, and I'm like, oh my God, you love it. But do you see what I mean? That belief comes into play strongly, and it comes into play when you're down or when you're up. Does that make sense? And
Yeah, yeah.
the whole purpose of that belief is to bring you back into the alignment. And what you intellectually know is or what you intellectually decided and articulated is I have a vice. And that already puts you on the back foot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Often I've worked with nutritionists as well, and they often say like the very thing that you're attracted to or that you crave is the thing that you need least.
When you try to change your sugar or your shopping or your gambling or your sex addict, I can't even imagine that, but I know that it happens. Or your drinking. I mean, please, I'm absolutely fine. When you change any of those, by changing the action, it's going to be impossible because if it brings you something. So it's not about changing action, it's about releasing the belief.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what I did without knowing it. I didn't know any of that at that time. I no longer believed alcohol brings me something. So I can have a cup of green tea. I mean, most of my clients, 98% of them, I would say, no, 90% of them, don't want to never drink again. And that's perfectly possible. Of course it is. If you have no emotional attachment to sugar, if you no longer believe it brings you something, it becomes something completely different. Yeah. Same with alcohol.
And that's the thing. And I've had this conversation with friends before, and I know it in myself. Like, I'm just gonna eliminate that thing. I'm like, but then it's still got a power over you in some way because you have to eliminate it in order to control it.
Okay, it cannot possibly have power over you. Say this was vodka. It cannot, under any circumstances, have. It doesn't care whether I pick it up, put it down. It doesn't care. It doesn't care whether I walk on by or knock the whole lot back. Couldn't give a shit about me. It has no consciousness. It's like, who are you? Okay. Same with you and sugar. There's no awareness. It's the it that you're struggling with is you. That you're struggling with is the inner conflict of I'm going to, I'm not going to. That's the only place. Your conscious mind knows that you don't want to eat it. Your unconscious mind feels it belongs you something. So instead of being like you're pulled apart, sugar is the action you take to try to reconnect yourself. And when the minute you start to accept that and you're not focusing on it being something outside of you that you only do to comfort yourself, you're having a completely different conversation with yourself, with yourself.
Yeah.
Different conversation. You can become aware of the times when you do and the times when you don't. The times when you can easily not eat sugar, the times when you struggle. And it's not the sugar that changes.
No, it's true. Yeah.
It's the way you're thinking and feeling.
Yeah.
It's not even the lockdown. It's not even bereavement. It's the way you're thinking and your perception of it at that time.
Yeah.
I do talk, don't I?
No, it's fantastic, Sonia. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. The sugar or the alcohol or whatever it is, it's inanimate. It does not change. It does not it's like completely unattached to whether you eat it or drink it or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an action you take. It's an action you take to comfort yourself, whether you're too high or too low. It's to try to bring you back into alignment.
Yeah. The
belief you have that it brings you something that needs to be released. Because when that's gone, it's something you can take or leave.
Exactly.
It's attachment. Exactly. It hasn't attached emotion to itself. It hasn't said to you, come here, sweetheart, you've done it. I mean, you've done it.
Oh, funny. This is amazing. Let's rather than getting into a coaching session around my sugar, which I'm sure the listeners are all very fascinated about.
Swap it out for any behavior.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. Swap it out for anything, and it is that point about it's the sugar, the alcohol, whatever, never changes. It's your thinking.
Your thinking creates a feeling which your thinking creates a feeling which you either need to comfort because you don't feel, or it creates a feeling that you don't need to comfort, and when you don't need to comfort it, you easily stay away from alcohol or sugar. It's that simple. It's so simple to be human in spirit. It's so simple. It's so hard at times because of the way we think to live in the physical world.
Yeah.
If we just step back into the spiritual sense of us and trust our intuition to look after ourselves, to protect us, to care for us, we don't have a problem. If someone said to me now, you are a shit mom, I would be like, oh, so ridiculous. If they'd said it 7 years ago, I would have been wounded because I believed that. I don't believe that now, and anyone that says it is probably drunk or anything, because my spirit protects me, is strong. Anything that comforts you from the outside is nice, like wrapping yourself in a blanket. But anything that you create from the inside that fills you in your shape, that's your armor. And it moves with you and it grows with you and it doesn't rub your skin and it always fits. And that's your superpower.
That's beautiful. That's lovely.
True.
Yeah. So on that note, like we've known each other for a few years. Is it 4 years that we've known each other? It probably is. Like, time flies.
I've got a bit of brain fog over after the COVID, so please excuse me.
So I've seen, especially in the past couple of years, like business-wise, you've taken absolute leaps and bounds in your business. So I wonder whether you'd be willing to share the shifts that have taken place in you and in your thinking and in your beliefs that have enabled you to make those shifts.
I'm not very good at talking about business, so I'll have a go. Everything comes down to how you view yourself. Everything. The one thing I'm still struggling is maybe it's not the wrong word, maybe it is the right word. I have a private Facebook group where I'm very open about my struggle. I am passionate about change. But I have a coach that said you need to go live in your Sonia Grimes Facebook page, which isn't my Facebook page. And I find a bit ashamed of my past. And it's not that I should or shouldn't be. I can't do anything about it. And I do forgive myself because my son forgives me and I consistently behave in a way that I'm proud of and I respect. So I still have some little, maybe not so little because I'm not doing as I've been asked to do, embarrassment, shame about what I do. But I think that's the only thing that holds me back. What I do, I am so passionate about change. I am so passionate about change. I struggled in a way I wouldn't wish on if I had one, my worst enemy. And I struggled always looking to the left for an answer to try to change alcohol when the answer was on the right and it was me. And I think the more I am aware that the beliefs that hold me back about being poor, big beliefs about being that frightened, can't earn money, can't make money, when you become aware, again, it's always awareness that that's just a belief and you love yourself and you gently maybe journal on it and you look for evidence that it's not true, you gently shift the belief. You can't fight a belief, you can't break a belief. Our beliefs are who we are. We can't break any part of ourselves. We have to consistently be kind and gentle, comfort our conscious thinking, which remembers being very poor when I was young and frightened about money and my parents arguing, and that can play it forward to the future, like, will this happen again? I think the biggest shifts, they all come down to awareness of the past isn't me, and it makes you brave. Fear is the brake pedal to change, always, in every way. Fear is the brake pedal to change. Anything I approach with excitement and expectation that it's going to be a success. I don't look at perfect, ever, because when you've got perfection, you've got nowhere else to go. That's it. Perfection is it. What else is there? 10 out of 10, you perfect. Okay, so I can't go to 11 because 11 doesn't exist. So it's always about doing my best, being authentic. And that's, I think, where growth comes. But I'm not great on talking about business, I don't think. I don't even think I've answered the question properly, to be honest.
No, I think what you're saying really is ultimately is very, very similar. The experience that you had of moving away from alcohol is very similar to the experience you've had when it comes to growing your business and being able to get your message out there. It's that awareness that actually, hang on a minute, these beliefs and sometimes even call them truths because they feel so true for
Beliefs
us.
do feel true.
They feel like the truth.
Absolutely.
And that's where you say, I love what you say, you kind of have to gently kind of coax a belief away.
By the actions you take. You can't coax your belief by talking.
No.
Do things, little steps every day that show you something different. Like, oh, okay. Well, that's all right. And there'll be some steps that don't give you the results you want, but they don't harm you either. They're just like, oh, okay, it's just another little bit of it.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Yeah. And it's those beliefs that something that's going to harm us, this thing that we're contemplating doing, whatever it might be, that keep us from taking the action, that if we took the action, we would get the evidence that it didn't actually harm us.
And our beliefs are there to protect us. They're not there to harm us. To keep us in our very uncomfortable comfort zone. And that's why there's no part of us that wants to harm us. There's no self-sabotage. When you come off a diet, when you've been doing great, and maybe go back to sugar, or you've been doing great, and then you go back to drinking for whatever. Alcohol hasn't changed, sugar hasn't, food hasn't changed. Something inside you has shifted through your thinking that's maybe scared you, it's brought up a feeling that you then drink to comfort. It's always self-comfort. It's never self-sabotage. We never, ever sabotage ourselves. We're only ever trying to help us. That's intention. It's often, far too often, not the result. But if you think to yourself, again, it's a very different conversation. I did that because bringing to your awareness why you did it. What was going on? How was I thinking and feeling? Maybe journal before I did that. It's a very different conversation, and you will realize I was feeling a bit down, or I was feeling a bit scared. You did it to comfort yourself. It's not the result, it's always the intention. So how could I comfort myself? When life slows up, speeds up, you slow down.
Yeah. I think more recently I found that it's when I've got the time to focus on where I really want to go with my business and in my life, is when I will revert back to the habits that don't serve me, and that then, they don't serve my evolution into a new version of me and a new version of my life. They serve me staying in this zone of comfort, zone of what I'm used to. And I feel like that has definitely been, certainly over the Christmas period, has been the thing where I've been like, this is obvious to me now, that this is what I'm seeking from whatever it might be, habits that I revert back into.
The intention behind your behavior, take apart the results very different. The intention behind your behavior is to protect you.
Yeah.
The intention behind your behavior is to comfort you. The intention behind your behavior is to keep you safe. And it's being aware of that and say, well, and taking small actions that do make small changes, but also bring you the comfort that you're looking for, because you cannot have two conflicting beliefs on the same subject within you. You can't believe you can be a success. I can only be a failure. You can't believe that. So let's dilute them. Let's take small steps that comfort and show a different reality, because the reality is all over the place. I'll use my being ill recently. This wasn't any on the cards. I thought I could die. That wasn't on the cards. I could not, once I got the positive test, I could be okay. That equally wasn't on the cards. But it didn't matter. There was lots of different realities, and I focused on, this is going to go through me, and I'm going to be fine, and I'm going to get a gift from it. That didn't change anything, but it changed how I progressed through a very frightening experience and how I came out the other side.
Yeah, it's the famous Viktor Frankl quote, which I'm about to mutilate, which is something along the lines of
I'm not going to be able to help you.
You can have everything can be taken. He was in a concentration camp in Auschwitz, and in his book, he writes that it can take everything away from you other than your power of how you choose to respond.
Actually, I'm sure that's completely right, but one of the things I don't really like using, so I need to find another analogy. But with clients, say for instance, people came out of concentration camps. Some of them were perfectly understandably broken. They'd lost everything. Some of them went on to live relatively normal lives, drink drugs. Some of them, there's a whole spectrum, and then some of them came out and changed the world. Changed the world with their compassion, their forgiveness. And the only difference was the way they perceived what had happened. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. They're all in this same hellhole of fear and loss and grief and brutality and lack of any humanity. And how they came out of it has got nothing to do with their education. Well, maybe a little bit, because you might be aware of Freud and Jung and stuff like that. But ultimately, it's your perception of what happens and what you do with that perception and how you move forward with that perception. And there's no right or wrongs at all. It's just a different perception, and it's an awareness I have. I mean, I've got no education. I don't have any O-levels. I'm a master practitioner of NLP and a master coach, but in terms of education, I've got none. None.
Well, that just indicates, doesn't it, that what we are just so taught to believe about what is necessary in order to be successful, in inverted commas, because what is success anyway? It's not necessarily the case. It's
curiosity. For me, I'm a curious cat.
Yeah.
Really curious. I question everything. No, because I've been on a very spiritual journey, and I'm not talking about God, I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
The spirit within me. I believe we're all born in the spirit of love. I absolutely believe that. And I think it's just questioning everything and accepting that what feels good is right and what doesn't feel good is not right for me. And then investigating further, for what reason does this not feel right? And also, for what reason does this feel right? What else does this mean? And just opening up my mind. And I'm very curious.
Yeah, curiosity, I think, is just, as so many people say, it's just absolutely key, remaining curious. And it's a bit like you just said then, when something doesn't feel good, instead of demonizing the thing, just be curious. Okay, what doesn't feel good about this? Why doesn't this feel like the right thing for me? What does feel like the right thing for me? And then having the courage to trust that following the thing that does feel right for you is part of what you were put here for, part of your path.
And also, when something doesn't feel right for you, really chunk it down. What aspect of it? Because otherwise you can say, I don't like that, I don't like that. What aspect don't you like? Because it might be that there's a small part that you really don't like, but the rest does serve you. Like I said earlier, I've been told by my coach, or advised, supported by my coach, to go live in LinkedIn about me being a bloody drunk mum. Well, I'm really and I know I'm really oh my God, I don't want to do that. And I know it's the right thing to do. And no doubt I will do it, because I just need to work on myself a little bit. But I think, well, what aspect of it don't I like? What aspect of it? And it's because I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. It's not that I'm scared of the camera. It's not that I'm fluffing it. It's not that I don't know my stuff. It's not that I don't care passionately. It's not that it's that I'm ashamed. That's what I need to work on. The rest of it, because otherwise I could think, I just don't like going on camera. Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. So I'm focusing on the obvious part of going live, which isn't actually the problem. And the problem is I'm embarrassed and ashamed.
Yeah. And I think, so many people have that fear, don't they, of going on camera. But again, just thinking in terms of what we've been talking about, the camera's an inanimate object. It's
how people will see us. Everything we do or don't do is we are looking for an emotion. When you go for sugar, and it just as easily be vodka, you're for something. You're looking for an emotion. If you get the chance to buy a red car or a black car and you care about cars, which I don't, mine's a dog carrier and that's it. Gets me from A to B. It's absolute shit. It's lovely on the outside, but oh my, it's like a quarry on the inside. But if you have the choice of choosing a red, you will choose the one that you like, which makes you feel something. Your action is a symbol of what you're looking for, And I don't even know why I said that, so I'm so sorry.
All right.
In my mind.
So one of the other things that we were talking about before, and you've mentioned it briefly, was about gifts. It was about how you now see everything that arrives in your life as a gift. And again, it ties back to you have a choice of how you see things and how you respond to things. So, you're talking about, you've been unfortunately through COVID, coming out the other side of it, but rather than seeing that as poor me, why did this happen to me, you've seen it as a gift.
In everything, I think it's really valuable to ask yourself, what's the gift in this for me? Because it takes you from that, as I said, there's all sorts of different realities. It takes you from the, oh God, this is terrible, and some terrible things do happen, to it's just a different shift. What's the gift in this for me? And actually there is always a gift. I don't even really know what mine is, but I do know that we went from, like everybody in the UK, a very small Christmas. I was still very poorly, and so I was at home with my son. I have a brother living with me as well. Christopher, my son, made Christmas dinner. It was so lovely. We sat on the sofa and he would never ever sit with me on the blanket, which is just just incredible. Watching Elf eating mince pie, and I will treasure that forever. That would not have happened. Actually, he wouldn't have been here. He'd been with his dad, who is absolutely wonderful, but of course he couldn't go there. I also really rested. Some of the things I had no choice. Some of the things I tell my clients, and one of the most powerful is, when life speeds up, you slow down. When emotions get intense, you slow down. And I know that, but it's always interesting to be forced into that situation of, oh my God, clients, is that, and actually I had one of my best months last month and I could barely speak or move. I was in a terrible state.
How interesting.
I had one of my best months. So I was just like, how is this happening? I've worked about 4 hours.
There you go. Just Tim Ferriss's, 4-hour work week or whatever it is. So you're living proof.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked before we came on about some of my posts. There's a very different feel to them.
Yeah.
Someone said to me, again, a business coach, a wonderful business coach, said, get someone else to write your posts. And I thought, okay. And I thought, absolutely not. I love writing. I love it. So I would never pass.
Yeah. It's your voice, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just, it's my voice, my thought process. And I think on one post, I got 4 clients. And I was just like, wow, that's fantastic. That's really, and I was just lying on the sofa, unable even to fill my hot water bottle up.
And this is interesting as well, because we spend so much of our lives efforting, really. And this is also, when we want to change something, we often feel like the way to make that change is to work really hard, is to push really hard, is to, to become determined and focused and all this. And I'm exploring quite a lot of, like patriarchy and capitalism and all this kind of stuff is my thing on the side at the moment that I'm really diving into. And it feels like that there is a whole other way of doing things. And just as you've explained, it's aligning and allowing.
Aligning and still doing, though, because we can sit and feel very aligned with ourselves and very peaceful. Because I did this a little bit last year. I suddenly realised I was very allowing and I was doing absolutely fucking nothing. So align and allow, and then do something.
Take some action.
Do something that's in absolute congruence with allowing and your alignment. Otherwise we just They're thinking, oh, this, I feel lovely. And then, oh, I haven't got any money to pay it. So please do something as well.
Yes. But I think it's that actually a lot of we can, I guess what I was trying to get at there was we can take as much action as we want, but if it's not aligned action,
no, it goes it goes awareness, bring yourself into alignment, and then do some fucking action.
Yeah.
But don't act first and then try to get yourself into alignment. Alignment first and then action. And then, as you and I both know, when you're in alignment, the action flows and is easier.
Yeah.
It resonates more and it connects. Because when we're trying to connect with the people we want to help most, if we are in desperation or need, they'll pick up on. When we are in alignment in our power, in our glory of who we are and what we deliver, we naturally connect with them. It doesn't work the other way around. Doing doesn't bring alignment. Alignment brings doing. Brings, the doing that creates a difference.
Yeah. No, 100%. And we were talking before how I've shifting my business now onto what I've really been wanting to do, but just don't quite know how it's all going to work out. And, I was yeah, exactly. Trusting. But before I was taking action, like you say, and trying to align myself with the action that I was taking, but it just didn't feel aligned. Whereas now I'm very much looking, and I'm very much into my astrology and my human design and my Enneagram and my this, and I kind of over the Christmas period went through and was like, common themes? Yes, there are many common themes telling me things about who I am and what I'm here to do in this lifetime. And now I've pulled all that together. It's just time to align with it and allow it.
Sit with it. Just sit with it. Let it filter down. It will land in the right place. First bit comes to you. Okay. You don't need to do it all in one go.
No.
Working on a group program now. I'm working with a wonderful coach that I met through a mastermind I was in. And we just had a call out of nowhere, probably even a catch-up call. I can't quite remember, to be honest. And she said certain things, and I thought, I want to work with you. And we are now working on an offer that doesn't just deal with alcohol, it deals with everything that I've talked about here about being the spirit and being the light and so forth, which you can use for any behaviour. And we're doing it bit by bit by bit by bit. It doesn't all need to be out there in one go. It can't be. I'm going to do what I'm in alignment with. I'm going to test it out on myself. I don't test on clients, obviously. And then I'll move forward, and then I'll move forward. But I have a direction. I know what I want. I know what I want to achieve, and it will all come together. I was saying before we started also, I said I don't like the word God. Not that I have any, I think religion is a wonderful thing and can be so supportive and so loving. And it's hope often gives hope where there really isn't very much. So I think it can be a wonderful thing. Personally, I don't like the word God. I don't like the meaning that I attach to it.
Yeah.
But what I do love is the phrase, let go and let God. When you have your calling and you let go, you'll find your way. You'll find you can't not.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like everything that you lived through was a part of your journey?
Well, it wasn't worth it. I don't want to, because I say it was worth it on any level.
Yeah.
That would be so disrespectful to my son. If nothing else, that would be so disrespectful. It wasn't worth it. Nothing will be, because I can't get those years back.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yes, everything that happens, everything it happens in life, depending on how you view it, you can either, I'm a very, very, very grateful woman. Really, I'm so profound. My sobriety is easy and effortless, and I am so grateful. And every day I am so grateful. I walk my girls, I've got 2 dogs, and I am so grateful. My book sells, and obviously you don't get much written. This is not the point. But I check every now and again, and I see another 5, and I'm so grateful. And that doesn't bring in money. That's not the point. Every small and big thing that I experience, I don't take it for granted. I just thank you, universe. Thank you. As I say, I don't use the word God, but God, universe, me. But ultimately, for instance, with the book, I wrote the book. So thank you for me. If I walk the girls in a beautiful place, I took them there. I'm so grateful for my dogs, but I chose them. It's all me. It's all, not in like, it's all me. It is ultimately. If I go somewhere beautiful, if I'm sitting outside and appreciating the sun, I've chosen to sit outside and look up and see it. Because you can look up and see the sun or look down and see the dog shit. Sorry.
It's true. No, but that's a really, really good point. Because again, for me, I was brought up in a religious family, and so I still, if you say the word God to me, I see a big man with a beard sitting on a cloud who says no, basically.
Yeah. Who says no? We don't mind the big man, we don't mind the cloud. It's the saying no we don't like. Always be specific. A big man sitting on a cloud is like, oh my God, that's nice. No,
no, or
damnation or judgment.
Yeah, exactly. So I've, over the years, that was my late 20s when I decided to move away, I had to find my own spirituality. And I feel like actually for everybody, it's that realization that it's within us, it's not outside of us.
No, it's not.
That is such a powerful realization.
I believe that I believe that we are spirits of light and innocence and love. And the more I step into that, and I, you know why I believe it? Because when I say it, is the way it makes me feel. That's all, and I feel like crying. That's all I need to know. That poor sick woman that struggled all those years, that lesser mother, that poor little boy that should never have seen what he did. Ultimately, he, like me, like you, like my mum and dad, not happy married, we all came here in our spirit of innocence and love and light. And I believe that because of the way it makes me feel. And isn't that a wonderful way to live?
Yes. Yeah. Such a wonderful way to live. And a beautiful, beautiful way to end the podcast, I think.
I've loved it.
It's been so wonderful speaking to you. You're such an inspirational woman, Sonia. So what we haven't really shared yet is if somebody has not only had an aha moment to help them, but is thinking, do you know what, this has resonated so much with me, I feel like Sonia could be the woman to help me. Where should they go to find out more about you?
My details are really interesting. Excuse me, they're very actually very easy. There's no magical,
you, Sonia. Nothing.
There's no magical transformative name to me, I'm afraid. It's soniagrimes.com.
Okay.
So that's my website. Yeah. If anybody would like, I offer a free 30-minute complimentary telephone conversation. It's no obligation. If you're struggling and you want to hear a little bit, or if you just want to download your fears to someone who's been there, great. If it gives you a couple of insights that give you a bit of comfort, we don't change on what we know. That's the only thing. We don't what we know, we change in what we feel. And we don't change the way we feel by talking to ourselves to a certain degree, because it needs action as well. But if it gives you some comfort, some support, I would love to talk to you. I do have a 6-week process, which is the rapid alcohol recovery process, which is a very clear and easy structure that takes you from alcohol pain to peace. But it could be food, it could be shopping. I am working on a group project, but please just contact me. Sign up. I've got a couple of freebies on my website, so you would join my email list so that you would get weekly support and inspiration and tips. And other than that, my biggest tip to you is be kind and gentle with yourself. Be kind and gentle with yourself, because when you are kind and gentle, when you don't judge yourself for being human and making mistakes, when you don't beat yourself up because you do things that ultimately harm you, everything becomes easier.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sonia. And I will put all of those details in the show notes so that people can refer to them. Thank you so much for being on this and having this conversation. It's been an absolute joy.
I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and thank you everybody who's watched and listened. I really hope, I can't see how you wouldn't have got something out of this, but I really hope you have got something out of this conversation. And yeah, I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of the Uncaged podcast. Bye for now.